The hairpins in your coiffure sway like small chimes, each delicate clink a reminder of the hours it took to assemble them, thick incense coils in the air. Sandalwood and clove curling into your lungs until it feels like you're breathing perfume instead of oxygen. The layered silk of your kimono shifts against your skin with every measured breath, each panel worth more than a farmer will see in 5 harvests, beyond the painted folding screen. Drunken samurai bark laughter. Their slick voice is heavy with arrogance. Their swords clatter against the tatami as they gesture to wildly at some joke you don't care to hear. Someone calls you takoihana, the highest flower. The compliment drips with false reverence. You know better than to believe it. Flowers are plucked, braided, and wilt. You lift your fan and hide your mouth, but not the faint curl of amusement in your eyes. Dark humor coils in your thoughts, and Oiran's smile can bankrupt a man faster than any sword. The difference is, I get to watch him thank me while I do it. The screen shifts as a maid signals. Your patron is ready. You stand. The weight of silk and gold like a suit of armor, and step into the floating world, where every breath is calculated and every glance costs something. Edo period Japan. Behind high wooden walls and guarded gates lies Yoshiwara, the licensed pleasure quarter, a glittering cage lit by lantern light. Outside, the streets belong to merchants and samurai. Inside, time itself feels strange, as though they are moves differently, slower, heavier, perfumed. This is the floating world, where reality is dressed in silk and illusion. You are born far from its glow, in a cold village where your family measures survival in bowls of rice, not years of life. One winter, a debt collector comes, and your father makes the only bargain he can, or childhood for his freedom. You are too young to understand the contract written in ink, but you will spend years repaying it with your body, your voice, and your smile. Your training begins before you even understand the word training. The days start with calligraphy brush strokes so precise they feel like breathing exercises for the hand. Then comes the shamisen, its strings biting your fingertips until they callous. Dance lessons follow, where every movement must carry meaning, a turn of the wrist to suggest coyness, a tilt of the head to imply longing. By evening, you are reciting poetry, bashes, haiku, love verses, riddles until you can weave them into conversation like silk threads into a kimono. You master the tea ceremony, not as a peaceful act, but as a ritual of calculated grace. Each gesture another brush stroke in the painting you present to the world. Historically, Oiran was more than a courtesan. She was expected to entertain samurai and scholars not just with beauty, but with wit, art, and intellect. The highest rank could hold her guests spellbound with nothing more than a perfectly timed pause in a story, and yet, this floating world was no heaven. It was a bubble, fragile, dazzling, but suffocating. The streets inside were narrow, lined with paper lanterns and dream sellers. You learn early that every smile has a price, every glance a meaning, and every kindness a cost. The walls are painted gold, but they are still walls. You begin as a komoro, a child attendant trailing behind an older Oiran like a shadow made of silk. Your job is simple in description, impossible in execution. Watch, listen, remember. You carry her long trailing kimono hem when she walks, pour her tea, and hand her the right hairpin at the right moment without needing to be told. For years, you become a living mirror. Every gesture she makes, you copy later in private, the languid way she fans herself when she is bored, the perfectly timed laugh when a client says something only mildly amusing. Even the pauses between words are deliberate, calculated to make men lean forward, hungry for more. In Yoshiwara, nothing is accidental. The hairpins that weigh heavy in your hair aren't just decoration. Each design and placement signals your status. An obi knot tied in the front instead of the back marks you as part of the pleasure quarter. But its style tells other women exactly where you stand in the hierarchy. The glide of your steps, knees slightly bent, toes pointed inward, is a practiced art meant to give the illusion that the weight of your kimono is nothing compared to the weight of your allure. As you move up the ranks, you learn one of the floating world's coldest truths: you must reject most customers. The Oiran is not a woman for any man, as she is for the rich, the powerful, the famous. To accept a lesser client would not only insult your own standing but lower the entire house's prestige. Selection is as much a performance as seduction. And your refusals must be wrapped in silk, polite, charming, and final, and always. There is the unspoken rule: luxury maintains itself only by exclusion. Your mentor tells you with a wry smile. If a man can't pay for your hair oil, he can't afford your time. It's dark humor, but it's true. In the floating world, desire is currency, and you are learning to make yours the rarest coin of all. They call it Oiran for the slow, formal procession through Yoshiwar's main street. To outsiders, it is a vision of elegance. To you, it is both stage and battlefield. You dress for hours before stepping outside. 12 layers of silk kimono, each one hand-painted and heavy with embroidery, weigh on your shoulders like ceremonial armor. Around your waist, the maruobi, a sash thick enough to stop a blade, is tied elaborately in the front, the mark of your profession. It's not designed for comfort, it's designed to remind the world that beauty has its price. On your feet, towering okobo sandals, wooden platforms over a foot high, make every step deliberate, controlled. The sandals are meant to slow you, to force the audience to savor your appearance. Walking in them is an act of will, falling in them would be an act of humiliation. You've trained until the movement feels like floating, each sway calculated, each turn a rehearsed flourish. The crowd gathers in waves. Merchants, apprentices, beggars, and visiting samurai lean in to catch a glimpse. Children stare at the towering figure you cut, their mothers tugging them back as if afraid your beauty might stain them, but you do not walk for them. Your gaze is reserved for the men who can afford your company, you retainers, wealthy merchants, poets whose verses are worth as much as gold. To the uninitiated, the Dishu is a celebration of your beauty. To you, it's a live advertisement, a moving catalog of your worth. A reminder to patrons that you are not just a woman, but an event. You've learned the art of selective blindness, acknowledging some with a flicker of eye contact, letting others dissolve into the blur of the street. Each glance is a thread cast into the water, hoping to hook the richest fish. And beneath the clink of hairpins and the rustle of silk lies a truth no one speaks aloud: this parade is not freedom, but display. You are the highest flower, but flowers do not choose where they are placed. To the outside world, men imagine the Oiran's life as a constant whirl of pleasured instant meetings, whispered confessions, silk sheets. The truth is far more calculated. Courting in Oiran is a marathon, not a sprint, and the race always starts with the patron's coin purse. It begins with gifts. A box of rare incense from Nagasaki. A lacquered comb carved with ivory cranes. Silk from Kyoto dyed in shades so rich they look stolen from a sunset. But the gifts are only the opening move. They must be accompanied by poems copied on fine washi paper, brushed in calligraphy so elegant it could almost disguise the recycled verses inside. And of course, payment to the brothel just for the privilege of sending those gifts. Weeks can pass before the first sanctioned meeting. You orchestrate the delay like a musician playing with silence, and knowing anticipation fattens the catch. When the evening finally arrives, the room glows with candlelight. Shadows rippling across painted screens, the air is thick with incense and expectation. You enter. Like a poem taking human form, a slow, deliberate, measured. The illusion is simple: he believes he is chasing you, but in truth, you are setting the path beneath his feet. You allow him glimpses of vulnerability with soft laugh, a hand resting lightly on his sleeve, not because you feel them, but because you've learned which gestures keep the silver flowing. Historical truth: you are not a geisha. Geisha are entertainers, free to refuse intimacy entirely. You are a courtesan of the highest tier, with rank above them but rules far heavier. You can refuse a man, yes, but once accepted, your presence is not for art alone. The brothel, the quarter, the hierarchy, they all weigh on your silk sleeves. You know the script by heart. He will swear he wants your heart. Men always do. You smile knowing that your heart was never on the table. My heart isn't for sale, but my time, oh, that has a very clear hourly rate. Beauty, in the floating world, is not effortless, it's engineered, maintained, and paid for in blood, sweat, and coin. The kimono, a cascade of brocades. Layers upon layers of silk stitched with gold thread, weighs more than a suit of armor. You carry it for hours, the fabric pressing into your hips, your back screaming in protest. The wide obi sash cinches your waist so tightly you can barely breathe. Walking becomes a controlled glide, your steps shortened by the towering okobo sandals that lift you above the dirt but grind into your calves. Then there's the hair. The elaborate coiffure takes hours, pinned with gold, jade, and tortoiseshell. Each ornament is a declaration of your status, and a spike digging into your scalp. Sleep is not on a pillow but on a small wooden block. Designed to preserve the style for days, you learn not to roll over in the night. Your face is a mask. Thick layers of white Oshiroi makeup hide fatigue, shadows, and any trace of age. Blackened teeth for fashion, crimson lips painted into a perfect bow. Beneath the powder, the skin chafes. You know women who've worn the paint so long. Their bare faces look like strangers. The nights are long, filled with performances, banquets, and private meetings that stretch until dawn. Daylight hours should be for rest, but rest is a luxury in Yoshiwara. Rivals are always watching, waiting for a misstep. A single rumor whispered to the wrong patron can strip you of rank faster than any illness. Rivalries among Oiran are wars fought without swords. A misplaced hairpin at a procession. A subtle insult wrapped in a poem. An accidental wine spill on your most prized kimono. The higher you climb, the more dangerous the smiles become. A samurai will stab you in the front, and Oiran will do it with a compliment. Adana, the wealthy patron every Oiran is trained to attract, is the promise of escape wrapped in silk. When he claims you, the brothel releases its hold. You move into finer rooms, eat the best food, wear the richest fabrics. On the surface, it looks like liberation. But the Dana does not buy your freedom, he buys exclusivity. The brothel's lock is replaced by his. His coin pays for your kimonos, your ornaments, your attendance, and in return, you are expected to be his living jewel. Always beautiful. Always available. Always his. The chains are invisible, but you feel them every day. You cannot walk the streets without permission. You cannot receive letters without his knowledge. Your dances, your songs, your smile all purchased. And unlike the brothel, where the rules were written, here the rules shift with his moods. You learn quickly that Adana's generosity has an edge. A gift of pearls is followed by a reminder no one else has touched these for you. A house in the city comes with the warning that it can be taken back if his attention wanders. Comfort is never free. It's a debt you pay in loyalty, obedience, and the illusion of affection. In rare cases, Adana can truly elevate an Oiran, arranging her marriage into a respectable family, securing her place in society. But more often, he simply replaces one cage with another. Softer in its padding but no less confining, Adana can rescue you from the brothel straight into another one with better wallpaper. In Yoshiwara, beauty is currency, and like any currency, its value declines. One morning, you catch yourself in the mirror. The white face paint still hides the sleepless nights. But the lines are there, faint now, but they will deepen. The patrons notice before you do. Then, gifts grow smaller. Invitations slow. Another Oiran, younger and with skin like in broken porcelain, begins to take your place in the parades. She copies your walk, your turns of phrase, everything except your caution. In the floating world, no one announces your fall. It happens silently. Like the tide pulling away from shore, 1 month you have 3 banquets a week, the next, none. The brothel begins to loan you to less distinguished clients. The whispers start, she's past her prime. You know the routes women like you take when the lanterns go out. Some marry an aging merchant, some work in tea houses. Their silks replaced with plain cotton, others slip into the unlicensed quarters, where the rules are looser but the coin is smaller. Worst of all is the fear not of poverty, but of being forgotten. You've spent your life as a performance, every gesture rehearsed, every glance calculated. When the audience leaves, who are you without them? There's no retirement plan for an Oiran. The kimonos that weighed you down now hang in cedar chests, too fine to wear and too costly to sell without shame. The hairpins gather dust, and you keep painting your face, hoping one more night will be enough to be remembered. The floating world isn't sinking, you are. It just doesn't send a rescue boat. Years later, Your name is no longer spoken in the tea houses. The lantern-light streets you once ruled now belong to others. You pass through Yoshiwara as a stranger. They are still thick with incense and the sound of shamisen, but no one turns to look. The young Oiran glide past in their silk processions, walking the same measured steps you once mastered. Some have your smile, your posture, your careful tilt of the head copied without ever knowing who they're imitating. That is your only ghost in this place. In your small rented room outside the quarter, you keep one relic, a single ornate hairpin of tortoiseshell and gold. It is both your crown and your chain. Sometimes, you turn it over in your hands, remembering the weight of the Okobo's sandals, the sting of the ornaments digging into your scalp, the burn in your calves from hours of standing still, and the thrill of watching an entire street hold its breath as you passed. You tell the neighbor's daughter stories, not the truth, but the kind with beautiful endings. She laughs when you say you were once called the highest flower. You don't tell her that flowers are cut at their peak. When you die, the brothel ledgers will list you as a former employee. No one will know how many men you turned away, how many poems you pretended to treasure, how much of your life was painted onto your skin and never washed off. But somewhere behind the paper walls of the floating world, the scent of incense lingers just a little too long. And the highest flower, though cut, still leaves its perfume in the air. Subscribe CTA if you've walked this far into the floating world with me. Subscribe for more lives you were never meant to live.